Hello, everyone. We are discussing Voss, Maydin, and Denison's article on the effects of constructing versus playing an educational game on student motivation and deep learning strategy use. Voss, Maydin, and Denison are discussing the constructivist theories that have shaped education. This is what they started out with their introduction to say that there has been a shift from direct teaching to an active learning type of environment. So they wanted to see this shift and how that might relate to gameplay. Here's a quote from page 127, the second paragraph. Keep that in mind as you will be answering a question about this later on. So this quote says, according to Driscoll in 1994, these constructivist environments are complex, realistic, and meaningful. A complex learning environment will engage and challenge students to construct new knowledge, which they can preferably apply in everyday life, in a realistic setting. This setting can make learning a personal, meaningful experience, which contributes to student motivation to learn. This motivation is essential to, according to Bransford, Brown, and Cooking, to reach a deeper level of learning. Learning, according to the constructivist learning theory, invokes a high level of active engagement of students. So I've also made it spin just so you can see the emphasis of this particular quote. Again, you'll be answering a question about it later on. Further on into the introduction, it says that games facilitate a so-called trial and error approach that has been considered supportive of the development of logical thinking and problem-solving skills. Games can provide experiences across various situated contexts that enable learners to understand complex situations. So essentially, this is discussing the ways in which games are not only versatile, but then also make the gamers think about what they are trying to accomplish. So they become problem solvers without necessarily thinking that they are problem solvers. Next, Voss and company discussed the effects of gaming, and there are two subheadings under that. One is intrinsic motivation, and with intrinsic motivation, playing games has become an important activity in the daily life of children. We know a lot of students and younger folk that play all kinds of random games, Angry Birds, Flappy Bird, and a number of other games. And games have the potential to enhance motivation for learning because they stimulate curiosity and interest by presenting learning activities in meaningful contexts in which the learner is in control. So in other words, students are in control of their own learning, to which then that excites them and motivates them to do more of the learning. A lot of studies have been done over the last decade to show that games enhance student motivation, and educational games, if we could get some really, really good ones, could thus provide a higher level of intrinsic motivation than a traditional school context. So, and I'm imagining when they say traditional school context, they mean direct instruction, not necessarily collaborative and active learning environments with students doing discovery lessons. The second effect of gaming is the deep learning and achievement that students tend to engage in. So there are two types of learning. There's surface learning and then there's deeper learning. Surface learning means that the student tries to memorize the given information by detail. So that, as you can probably guess, is more along the lines of rote memory and not very much internalization. While I say that, deep processing or deep learning involves the critical analysis of new ideas, linking them to already known concepts and principles, and leads to understanding and long-term retention of concepts so that they can be used for problem solving in unfamiliar contexts. So in other words, it establishes critical thinking so that students, when they are given a problem, they do not then only assume that there are a set amount of tools. They can use the tools that have been given to them and quote unquote think outside the box, meaning using the tools given to them, reframing them and using them for whatever particular context that they are in. Something else, deep learning represents the approaches that focus on integration, synthesis, and reflection. Students who use deep approaches to learning perform better, as well as retaining, integrating, and transferring information at higher rates than students using surface approaches to learning. So as I was kind of talking about that before, deeper learning creates a long-term understanding of information versus a surface type of retention. Along the same vein of deep learning and achievement, the effects of games on deep learning have also been investigated by Oyen and Bebko in 1996, and they found that games to enhance children's interest and engagement toward a learning task. The children in the game lesson did not want to stop playing the game and therefore rehearse the content more than children in the traditional lesson condition. So, in other words, students that use games tend to learn more and more and more over and over and over again in a much shorter amount of time versus students in a traditional sense who may repeat the task maybe a few times in comparison to game players. Also, learning with computers could thus very well enhance student deep strategy and deep learning outcome. So using computer games and computers and the internet and things like that to process over and over again will help students create that deep understanding towards content. Now, this is a action research that was done, so it comes with results. One of the results was that it showed a significant difference between the two conditions, both on intrinsic motivation and deep strategy use. The large effect sizes for both motivation and deep strategy use were in favor of the construction condition. So essentially, students were asked to create games to work with, and they found that those students that actually created games for them to actually use in learning the material did much better than students that merely played the games. These findings are in line with the study of Kafai and Kiili. Based on their research, we expect the game construction condition to enhance intrinsic motivation and stimulate the use of deep learning strategies more than the game playing condition. So as I was saying, students tend to learn more as they are building an actual game to play versus just playing it. Now we come to the conclusion and discussion portion of the paper. Something that they concluded was constructing a game seems to be more motivating and stimulates a deep learning approach more than playing a game. Something else, moreover, the students in the play condition seemed to be less motivated and made less use of a deep strategy than during their regular school lessons. These findings might suggest students were less motivated during the gameplay than during their regular school lessons. So, in fact, it's not just playing games that enhances learning. Actually, building games and that particular structure actually is what works the best, or at least according to this particular paper. It can also thus be concluded that games do not always provide higher intrinsic motivation and deep strategy use. However, there seem to be some characteristics of the game construction activity that enhance student motivation and deep strategy use. So it does not mean that this works every single time, but it does work some of the time, at least in that particular sense. Furthermore, when observing the students in the play condition, we noted the students got bored, again, bored, when playing the game several times over. Most students really liked the game when they played it 1, 2, or 3 times. After the third time of playing, students' attention seemed to decrease. The gameplay might have been too easy for most of the students. To enhance the complexity, it might have been better to construct different versions of the game so that students could play on different complexity levels. So there's a certain level of law of diminishing returns, I think, that comes with anything such as gameplay. I think that while you would like students to play over and over and over again as they are developing their deep understanding and deep strategy for problem solving, that should not necessarily be the goal of the particular gameplay that you're presenting to them. So just be careful with that when you are creating your game. And with any other type of action research, there are some limitations. And one of the limitations that they are presenting is a technical limitation of the study was the lack of process evaluation. No structured qualitative data, i.e., observations and interviews, were collected to gain insight to student learning processes. This could have been given more insight into the research findings in a deeper way. So, this was a strictly quantitative study. There was no qualitative data collected at all. And this is one of the limitations. So when you are engaging in action research, try to do qualitative and quantitative, not just one or the other. Yes. So this is coming to the end. The results are clearly in favor of the construction condition. The construction of a game not only has positive effects on intrinsic motivation of students constructing a game, but it also stimulates the use of deep learning strategies. So this particular paper not necessarily had a bias, but it was trying to prove a certain type of aspect of relating to gameplay. It was not necessarily for gameplay, but more game construction. And I believe that it proved the thesis or the hypothesis that it set out to do. So constructing a game helps and furthers understanding more than the mere gameplay aspect. So as per anything else we do, I have some questions for you. So question number 1. Considering learning, according to constructivists, invokes engagement, how would you make your classroom complex, realistic, and meaningful? So, how would you do that? Question number 2. What are some games that you would like to use to encourage deep learning of mathematics? So, if you could list any games that you've come across in your experiences, please list them. And per, the usual, please respond to at least one classmate's post for both of these questions, as they will be 2 different forms. Thank you and enjoy.